Greetings and salutations, folks. After an extended hiatus, I'm back in full effect once again. A year after my last Oscars video, I don't know, there's just something about these Academy Awards. There's just always something political about them. How about that? Art actually having a political dimension. Who'd have thought? Joining me this evening is my esteemed friend, Teresa Basile.
Hello.
Teresa is herself an artiste extraordinaire, skilled actress, skilled singer, as I've actually had the opportunity to hear on a couple of occasions. And she is going to share with us her take specifically on Casey Affleck's win of the Oscar for Best Actor for his performance in Manchester by the Sea. Without further ado, thanks for joining me, Teresa.
Thanks for inviting me to participate.
Anytime. Why don't we start with you just sharing a little bit of your professional and artistic background with my audience?
I'm a writer. I have written at least one novel. Well, I've written more than one, but I've published one. It's a young adult vampire novel. I have also started an independent film company called Second Star NYC. 4 of us founded that company, and our goal was to make a film company that was focused on telling stories of people from marginalized communities, people who are not represented as much in mainstream media, particularly women, particularly people of color. And we've tried to branch out from that as well to include more LGBT people as well. We're always looking to increase diversity and to just look to tell stories of so many different types of people. And that is my main artistic background. I also have a blog. It's just my name, www.teresabasile.com. And that's where I post a lot of feminist viewpoints about media, about film, television, sometimes books, and sometimes it'll just contain humorous pieces as well. I try to inject humor into most of the things I do as well.
With considerable success, I might add.
Thank you. Now I feel pressured to make a joke, but I'll try to save my zingers for later if I have any.
Well, I'll leave it to your good offices to time those zingers just right. You were the absolute perfect guest to discuss this particular topic with. In a nutshell, what was your reaction to Casey Affleck's Oscar night victory?
Well, I wasn't entirely surprised, but I was hoping that Denzel Washington would be the one to take it at kind of the last minute. Since he's the one who got the Screen Actors Guild Award, I thought there was a chance that he would get it. And since Denzel Washington's such a great actor and he had turned in such a great performance in Fences, I thought not only would it be nice to not have the Oscar go to someone accused of sexual assault and sexual harassment, but it would go to a really good actor, a really esteemed actor. And it would be so nice to see it go to Denzel and have him three-peat, which only a few other people have done before. But instead, like, they announced Casey Affleck, and I was like, so upset. So I was not happy about that. And based on Brie Larson's facial expression, I don't think she was that happy about having to give him the award either. But she did. So
a little bit of Oscar night posturing, huh? I guess that's part of the game.
Well, I mean, she gave him a hug and everything when she gave him the Oscar, but people were also commenting how she wasn't clapping on stage for him. So I think it was sort of a polite way to show that disapproval. But again, I could just be reading too far into an actress's body language.
You know what? It would actually be a good idea if you could just give us a quick rundown of what he was accused of and exactly how you think it pertains to the Oscars.
Well, I know that he was accused of sexual harassment by a couple of women. There are a couple of different people who alleged that he sexually harassed them while they were working with him. So it was an issue of, workplace harassment. And I believe they dropped the charges at one point. I may be conflating that part with something else. I don't know. I feel like there are so many different stories about sexual assault and harassment that come out in Hollywood that I could possibly be jumbling them together in my mind. But I do know that it had to do with basically workplace harassment. People worked on movies with him. It seems to me that the Oscars, if it's supposed to be honoring the best in film. Film sets are their own types of workplace. All film sets are a workplace in of themselves. And to me, it seems like giving the equivalent in a way of an Employee of the Year award to someone who has been accused of treating other people in his workplace badly. Not just badly like being a jerk on set, because sometimes people can be irritable or whatever, but actual criminal behavior. So it just seems to me that it's like having a venue is basically like, we're going to give the Employee of the Year award to someone who is basically not treating his coworkers well.
So do you think that it's possible or desirable to hate the artist and yet still love the art? Because that's one response that I've seen to the controversy over Casey Affleck's allegations and to his Oscar win, that we should sort of adopt an all of the above approach, where we acknowledge what he has allegedly done off camera or behind the scenes and condemn him for that while still giving him his artistic due in the form of this Academy Award. Do you think that that's the right approach, or is that just not good enough?
I would say that it's not good enough, and this is why. Let me backtrack, because I have a couple of thoughts on this at once, because I understand the viewpoint of disliking the artist but still appreciating the art. And for the record, I have not seen Manchester by the Sea, but I have seen him in his other previous Oscar-nominated role for the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, and I thought he was great. I thought he was great in Gone Baby Gone, which Ben Affleck directed. And in fact, I was trying for several years to get my dad to watch the movie. My dad cannot stand Ben Affleck as an actor, but I was just like, his little brother Casey's really good though, and my dad didn't believe me, but he wound up seeing Manchester by the Sea, clueless of all of these allegations. And now I want to tell him, well, the movie that I've been trying to get you to watch for years, I'm now taking that back. So I'm really annoyed, just on a personal family anecdote level. But putting that aside, yeah, it's possible to love the art and not appreciate the artist who created it. It's not as though everyone who has made good art has always been a perfect person or has always been a good person. This is actually an example that my godfather likes to bring up. Wagner, the composer, composed great music, but he was a raging anti-Semite. I still listen to his music. And I say, well, okay, but Wagner's dead and he's not spreading that viewpoint anymore from the grave. But anyway, to me, a lot of times when people say hate the artist, but love the art they create, you shouldn't judge the art by the artist. To me, and I tweeted this yesterday, that's just code for men's art is more important than women's lives and their experiences. Like, it's more important for men to be able to have a venue where they can express themselves than it is for the women who may have been victimized by their behavior. It's like, okay, we acknowledge that what they did to you was bad, but it's still secondary to honoring this guy. It's not as though if Casey Affleck had not won the Oscar, he would have been banned from acting. It's not like he'd never make another movie again. It's not as though he would be prohibited from expressing his artistic self. He could still do all of those things, and a lot of people would still watch it. He doesn't need to get the highest acting honor of the night. Well, one of the two highest acting honors of the night for it.
On my front, I can see that. One thing that I would say about his particular allegations is that they pertain to the movie business, because what he allegedly did was allegedly done on a movie set. And that's an important issue, because we've all heard the sordid tales of what goes on the casting couch. We've heard stories of actresses in particular feeling pressured to, quote unquote, sleep their way to the top. We've heard of directors taking advantage of women in those positions. And there's a lot of truth to those stories. I mean, that kind of behavior is definitely fundamentally wrong and unjust and despicable. So I see a nexus between the allegations against Casey Affleck and the movie business. And so I can see really persuasively the case for saying he shouldn't get this kind of honor, as opposed to if maybe the misdeed of which he was accused were a bit further removed from Hollywood itself. Maybe.
Yeah, I mostly agree with that as well. Like, if the allegations had come from someone that he was, like, I don't know, if he had sexually harassed someone in college, then I'm not saying that would have been okay, but it wouldn't have been like in the workplace, and that would have been long enough ago that I could give someone the benefit of the doubt and be like, all right, maybe he's changed since then, because people deserve second chances and chances to redeem themselves. But I don't think getting the highest honor is like redeeming yourself. So
Right. At the same time, I guess I have mixed feelings on the whole. I can see the whole hate the artist, love the art viewpoint as well. And as I can't say I've firmly come down on either side. But either way, I do think that we should definitely take the issue of his allegations very seriously. And to the extent that they're proven, he deserves to be condemned for them, whether he gets the Oscar or not. But it's interesting that you just mentioned the issue of whether this hypothetically had happened years ago while he was in college, because that brings to mind another somewhat similar case, that of Nate Parker, who, of course, was accused of tried for and acquitted of actual rape of a fellow student when he was in college at Penn State back in 1999, I think. Of course, tragically, the alleged victim in that case committed suicide a few years ago, and this news broke again last fall during the buzz surrounding his film, The Birth of a Nation, and it was getting a lot of Oscar buzz. After that issue got a lot of attention, the movie seemed to sort of fall off when it came to being considered for an Oscar.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to that, and taking into account the whole question of guilt versus innocence, the presumption of innocence, the fact that he was acquitted? Where do those legal issues fit into your take on that whole case?
I definitely had a lot of mixed feelings about that one. I wasn't sure how I felt about that whole situation because I could see so many different angles from that, because I'm thinking, you know, if someone is acquitted by a jury, not guilty is not the same as innocent, for one thing. And a lot of people who have committed rape may still not be found guilty in court. On the other hand, it's like, how often is the legal system go out of its way to be kind to Black men? That doesn't happen often. So there's the whole racial element that comes into play. And a part of me was thinking, if a jury has found him not guilty, then maybe that should just be the end of it. So I definitely had mixed feelings about that. But I felt uncomfortable enough about it that I did not want to see the film for it. It's sort of what people say about voting with your wallet. And there are certain artists that I feel like I could not support even if I would otherwise enjoy their work. And I did actually want to see that movie initially until I heard about these things. And I thought, he has a right to make his art and he has a right to make this movie, but I don't need to see it. I don't want to support it financially, and I don't want to support it by watching it and talking about it, because even though it seemed historically important, it was historically important, but I felt uncomfortable enough about it that I didn't want to see it. And then when I was reading reviews about it, what I thought was really interesting is that for the film, apparently he and his co-writer had written in a rape scene that did not actually happen in history. So we were talking before about how much does the art and the artist, like, where can you separate it, and where can you, like, when can you separate, when you can't? That to me is a situation where you just can't. That in itself doesn't make it a bad movie. That doesn't make it a bad artistic choice in of itself, but it adds to the whole questionable nature of the entire thing. And describing lack of remorse based on Parker's seeming lack of remorse for it, and the fact that the victim killed herself recently, that's why for me it was just a bad situation all around. As to why Casey Affleck was forgiven and Nate Parker was not, I think race definitely had a role in it. I also think it had to do with that Nate Parker was an up and coming. He was, just rising, and he didn't already have an established career where he was beloved in any way. Whereas Casey Affleck already had an Oscar nomination. People already knew who he was, got a big brother in the industry, got friends in the industry. And he was also just the main actor of the film, whereas Nate Parker had written and directed and starred in the whole thing. So he's more connected to the project in every possible way.
When it comes to the whole Nate Parker issue, Black women in particular are often put in a really difficult position when appraising those kinds of cases of Black men who are accused of committing sexual assaults, because they're torn between the desire to seek justice for women who are victims of sexual assault and to, at the same time, acknowledge the ways in which sex has been used as a weapon against Black men throughout American history.
Yeah.
Just to pivot away from a lot of this heavy discussion, in the last few minutes of our chat, I was just thinking, if you could share a bit more about your company and any upcoming projects that you may have that my viewers should be on the lookout for. I guess especially in the tri-state area where you reside.
Yeah, sure. So we recently just finished principal photography for our web series, and it's called Working Title. It's about a group of 6 people who are on the set of an independent film, and they have a really terrible, douchey director. And that director fires most of them. One of them quits. And they decide that they are going to get revenge on him by creating their own movie and entering it in the same film festival that he is competing in, except they really don't know what they're doing. They're just sort of scrambling for ideas, trying to make a movie at the last minute, and most of them are completely clueless on how to do it. So it's a comedy that's very absurd and it's very silly. It was great fun to make, and it's going to be about 6 episodes long. It's in the editing stages right now. we expect it to be ready to preview in about fall of 2017, I think. And we also do a monthly 7-day film challenge where we will post a prompt on our Facebook page at Second Star NYC. We'll post a question and then audience members will answer, and then we'll take one of them out of a hat, and then we'll use that to basically make a movie in 7 days. We do that every other month. So the writer will have 1 day to write. The director will have 1 day for pre-production. Then production is 1 day. Editing is 1 day. Everything takes 1 day. We just try to make a short story. It's all experimental. It's all very fun. We've created some pretty strong dramas out of such small things in the past, and also some like kind of wacky comedies. It's been really fun because I like to see the balance that we managed to strike between those different things.
Sweet. So really quickly, how do you guys come up with funding? Is it all crowdfunding, or what other sources of financing do you have?
Right now, it has been crowdfunding for working title. We did an Indiegogo campaign in 2015 to raise money for the principal photography for it, and we did make our goal, so that was really cool that we made our entire Indiegogo goal. In terms of the 7-day film challenge, right now that's something that we're just paying out of pocket for because it's low expense. The 7-day film challenge is really just sort of a way for us to experiment. It's a way to get different artists involved, that some of whom we've worked with on other projects and other ones that are new, and then also just try to tell stories with different people. So it's a sort of a community building exercise, and it's a way for people to participate in something short and fun, like they want to just flex their writing muscles or flex their acting muscles or do something a little bit different, but maybe don't have time to commit to a full-length project, so they just have 1 day. Just 1 day that they have to commit to this, and they get to be part of a little movie. And those are the main things. We also have a longer short film that is still in the writing stages now, but that's going to be pretty exciting when that comes out. That's what one of my co-founders of the company is working on.
Cool. That's really impressive. Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
I just wanted to commend you very quickly on the focus of your company's work, you know, trying to tell the stories that show business all too often overlooks or ignores, particularly the stories of marginalized communities. It actually reminds me of an interview I did a year ago with a friend of mine from back in my college days who actually lost her lower left leg in a car accident.
Oh, wow.
On a New Jersey highway, I think 4 years ago. At this point, actually, I think it's 5 years ago. She's just one of the strongest people I know in terms of how she's handled that challenge and, you know, living with a disability. And I remember her telling me in the interview that I forget exactly how, but part of her efforts involve looking for roles for people with disabilities in theater, which is her field. You know? So she does her part in her everyday work to try to create more of a space for underserved and marginalized populations. As I said to her last year, I'll say to you now, I salute your efforts.
Thank you. And she sounds really cool. Maybe you want to put us in touch, because that would be really cool if she ever wanted to do the filmmaking world, to try that.
Will do, most definitely. Most definitely. Yeah.
And just one final thought, because I actually had this thought when you first asked me to have this conversation, and I was thinking about, you know, what happens to women if they commit crimes or if they are just accused of criminal activity? What happens to them if they work in Hollywood? Remember how Winona Ryder kind of disappeared off the map for a good long time, and we didn't hear from much of her because of shoplifting?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, men who commit acts of violence or accused of committing acts of violence go on to get nominated for and win Academy Awards. People are just like, well, Casey Affleck hasn't been, like, there's no proof there. All I have to say is Roman Polanski.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
And I didn't even talk about Mel Gibson. That could have been an entire other conversation, too.
You took the words right out of my mouth. And I mean, in Roman Polanski's case, I remember so many other celebrities coming out and leaping to his defense. People like, I think Whoopi Goldberg did. People really ought to know better, you know? Like,
yeah, there were a lot of otherwise, or at least I thought, intelligent people who are on that list. And I was just like,
mind blown.
I don't know. I don't know if it was because he had such a tragic past in his youth that they're forgiving him for his present, but like, raped a 13-year-old girl.
You don't pay that kind of thing forward. You know, there's no, misery shouldn't love company that way.
Exactly.
You've suffered, great, but don't let people suffer because you've suffered. You know?
Exactly.
Yes, mind blown, stomach churned, the works. But in any case, it's good to know that there are folks like you out there doing what you do.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing the fruits of your labor in the months and years to come.
Thank you, Akil. And I look forward to watching more of your videos. I have seen a few, but this is the first time that I was able to participate, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure it won't be the last.
Yes, and I look forward again to doing karaoke with you, where I shall show off my melodious tenor again.
That's right. Hey, you got some pipes, y'all. No
Thank
joke.
you.
You can sing. Thanks a lot for joining me, Teresa, and I'll let you know as soon as we got it chopped up and posted on YouTube.
Awesome. Thanks, Akil. Have a good night.
Likewise.